Bring it back to order. We'll go to our next committee, which is Community Economic Development. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Pinky Vargas.
Thank you, President Lilliquist. We have one item this afternoon, and I am joined on committee with Council members Roxanne Murphy and April Barker. We have a review of the Planning and Community Development Department's Community Economic Development Division's work program, and I'm going to turn it over to Rick Sepler.
Good afternoon, Council members. As you recall, we provided an overview of the department, of the major issues and the schedules for those, and we're following it up with each of our divisions to give you a more detailed look. In your packets, you received a narrative of all the projects that are queued for the coming biennium. Remember, it's a 2-year work plan, and it will correspond to our schedule. And at this point, I turn it over to the division manager, Tara Sundin, who will bring you up to speed on the project itself, and of course, will be available at the end to answer any of your questions.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here to present an overview, and I'm just going to give you an overview. I'm not going to go through all of our work program today. In your packet, there's a list of kind of new projects and programs that kind of go above and beyond our normal, kind of our standard work that we do every year. The Community Development Division has 6 FTEs. And actually we're adding a 0.5 FTE to our staff this year. Katie Franks has gone part-time, and I'm in the process right now of hiring another development specialist. Darby Coles and Samuel Lutz are here with me today. Are 2 of our senior staff members on our team. We have also a great support staff, Shannon and Heather and Barbara, that provide us a lot of service as well. Really good team, managing a lot of work. And today I thought I'd just want to give you a little update on the 3 projects, kind of our major projects for this year, and just touch on a couple others, and then we'll allow you just time to dive in with any questions. So kind of our major projects this year, the 5-year consolidated plan, and this is a plan that HUD requires the city to do because we're recipients of the Community Development Block Grant funds as well as the home funds. When we develop these plans, though, we're also looking at our housing levy. And as we've talked about with you prior, we're going to use this planning process to really inform that next home levy or housing levy and kind of reevaluate the needs in our community right now. I can tell you there's more interest in this plan from the community members than traditionally is the case, and I think that shows us that our community is very interested in affordability, housing affordability, and economic development, etc. So that plan encompasses much more than just housing. The low barrier shelter, or easy access shelter, we just announced that we did make a deal with the Lighthouse Mission and have selected a site for you to be considering in the coming months. At your next meeting, Hans from the Lighthouse Mission is going to come and present to you. So we'll provide you a much more in-depth overview of that project at your next meeting. And then the retail strategy. This is a project that the city has budgeted for. In the 2017 budget, we've put $60,000 in. And the cost of something like this is probably more in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $90,000. And so we've been working with the Downtown Bellingham Partnership to look at some funding, a true partnership with the city and downtown to kind of help us fund the other piece. And you might ask, why focus on retail in the downtown core? But the retail strategy, a strong, healthy ground floor in our downtown is instrumental in us attracting those upper story tenants and residents to our downtown, and really goes hand in hand with the image of our downtown. So we think the time is really ripe for this because we have great leadership at the partnership, which you'll hear from Alice later this afternoon. Really pleased with that. We think it's important to take a look at this now too, because our waterfront's going to be coming online in the next few years. and we want to make sure we have a really strong core and that kind of destination in our downtown as well. And, you know, downtown, we need to shine it up a little bit in places, and we think that this will help. As we want to make sure we get tenants into our downtown that are really ready to thrive and be successful in downtown, and that really align well with Bellingham, how we spend our money, what would do well for our kind of brand and image, downtown Bellingham. I'm going to kind of touch on just a couple of things that you might not be as familiar with. The care coordination piece that Dan mentioned when Rick was presenting. This is a piece that we're calling it GRACE, ground level response and coordinated engagement. And we're working with Whatcom County and Peace Health. So the city, Whatcom County, and Peace Health kind of came together and said, let's pull in the service providers in our community to take a look at some of the resources and how we're kind of deploying resources with regards to those that are using our police resources a lot, our medic resources like the community paramedic and those services, our hospital, and all of our social service providers. And we want to see if we can make improvements to that system so that we can deliver better service to those that need those services, and maybe decrease some of the costs associated with continual utilization of those services. So my role in that really is convening, and we're going to have a couple of, and Dan's serving on that committee as well. We're planning some open house or half-day workshops, I guess you would call it, to kind of see what kind of new actions and initiatives that we can undertake to help us move forward with reducing those costs to the city and improving service. So you might be hearing more about that in the coming months. I also wanted to talk about the fiber project too, because I figured Michael would ask me about it if I didn't bring it up. We are getting started with that. Darby is going to lead that project. She is working with an internal team and as well as the Technology Alliance group, and it's probably a short project. We're hoping to wrap it up this summer. What we're looking at is, for a long time, we do not get complaints from businesses that we have a shortage of fiber opportunity here, and so we want to kind of figure out, is that true? Do we have enough fiber here that we should be touting what we have? And so that's what this project is about. It's about better understanding what we have, you know, and I'm not just talking about what the city of Bellingham has. In fact, that's not the focus. What does the private sector have to support our current businesses and those areas of our city that we want to grow? And so we'll be doing some outreach with the business community, and TAG's going to really help us with that. We'll be outreaching with the providers to see what kind of infrastructure we have in place, and then comparing ourselves to similar communities. Whatever the results are, we're going to use that information. If the results are, we think we have better than average, we're going to use that and really start to tout that as an opportunity here in Bellingham. If we find some deficiencies, we're going to use that information to try to close those gaps. This is not focused on the residential parts of our community either. This isn't about what you have available at your home, but this is really focused on the business community. I also wanted to mention...
Eric, can we hold it just one quick question? Councilmember Murphy has a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I'm really interested in is exploring whether the city could invest in its own fiber optics. I hear you say you want to look at what's privately owned, but looking at what other cities have done to actually generate funding through private, not private owned, but municipally owned fiber optics, like through cable service offering, through internet services. That's what I'm uniquely interested in.
Okay, we will, well, If we'd had a deficiency, I think that's certainly something that we should be considering as a community. I'm not sure that we do have a deficiency that the private sector isn't handling.
I'm talking about competition for those existing providers and looking at other cities that have done that.
I also wanted to mention something that's not on our work program, but it's come to my attention. Darby and I were talking about this. This Economic Development Strategic Action Plan, this is for the city of Bellingham only. It doesn't cover what everyone is doing in our community with regards to economic development. This is ours. This action plan goes through the end of this year. So this year we will be updating this and developing another action plan. And I'll be working with the committee as well on that item. With that, I just wanted to touch on a couple projects. I'll open it up to you to hone in on any specific questions that you might have.
I have a couple of things. One, I'm really excited that Darby is working with TAG, especially in regards to economic development and a driver around technology. So that's an industry I know we want to highlight. And I'm wondering if you could describe really quickly two things, the City Center Recognition Program and also the food truck pilot.
Okay. The City Center Recognition Program, the mayor has been wanting to really highlight and honor those that are contributing to our community. And so we've developed a program that is about to launch, but hasn't quite, where she will be honoring a couple of leaders in downtown that have done, it's focused on a physical project. I almost just announced who they are. No. So I think we're planning an event here in the next about 2 months. And we're the first batch, I think there's 3 projects that are being honored this year.
And the food truck, can you tell people a little bit about the food truck pilot?
If you want a lot of detail, I'm going to have to get Darby down here.
A summary is totally great.
Pretty high level.
Yeah.
We're piloting this idea of allowing food trucks in certain parts of our downtown to be parked on street. So right now you can't have commercial activity on street. You can just pull a food truck, up on Railroad Avenue and start selling. But we're piloting this in front of City Hall. I believe there's also a location on Commercial by Ishka. And there's probably another one where the food trucks are able to serve and vend from our rights of way. We're just seeing if it works and seeing how businesses respond in the neighboring vicinity. They all had to sign on to this. And if it proves to be something we want to move forward, we'll bring something more permanent back to you all for consideration.
Thanks, Sarah. Councilmember Barker.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things. One, with the retail strategy, I've been reading a lot of really interesting articles on economic development, and it says, what I'm hearing a lot of is you should never really have the discussion of economic development without also having a housing discussion always. So I'm interested in how you move forward with the retail strategy, knowing that 49% of our communities by the United Way is living either in poverty or access limited, income constrained. So that means that if people are living at such a highly burdened housing, then how it kind of is counterintuitive to the retail, that we have to have that discussion on how to get that housing cost down so that these retails can also really flourish. So I'm interested in how we're going to pair those so we can be working on the housing as we're trying to work on the economic development, making sure people have enough money to be able to spend out in the community. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Wow. That is a little broader than that we're going to be tackling with that specific project, but the retail strategy will take into account our own demographics and who we have living here and how they spend their money. But it's not going to, I'm not going to get that project focused on housing affordability, but certainly our division works on housing affordability as well.
I think the opportunity is the consolidated plan provides a venue and we don't work in isolation. We play the data back and forth between different projects. So we could take advantage of that process to help fill in some of those gaps and see what the projections are long term.
Councilmember Barker?
Also, so the consolidated plan is coming up for review. I'm really interested in taking a deeper dive in the consolidation plan as it comes forward. We've been putting our money in a lot of different places, and I'm interested in learning if we maybe want to focus in on specific values, what that looks like if we were to be pushing our money maybe into specific areas, say women and children. That might be mine. So I want to make sure we have enough time, though, to really dive in. I think if we're coming back just for a review, it would take a lot more time to maybe rewrite.
So I think, well, the person that we're hiring, by the way, this is going to be their primary focus. This job, this project will be their focus for the next year. You guys had already indicated that you'd want to be more involved. Traditionally, the council sees the plan towards the end and approves that plan. You approve these plans on an annual basis, but I will be bringing back, probably we need to bring the needs assessment to you at the conclusion of that step. That's the first thing that we're going to do. We'll go over the needs assessment with you and seek some direction.
Councilmember Barker?
I'm also interested, having attended the Northwest Recreation Summit and recently I serve on the BIAC committee, which is the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee. We're seeing that our flights are certainly decreasing for many of things, but one is that the airport and the port, I understand, would really like to see Bellingham become a great destination, and I know recreation is something that we could tout really well. So I'm interested in if you all have discussed in the past of putting recreation as an economic driver, like specific in our plan, or is there a reason why we don't have that in our economic kind of major projects and plans?
So in our strategic action plan, we didn't call out sectors because it's really about what the city is doing. We are focused on the recreation sector, and we fund. So what you're not seeing the level of detail in this work program is we do have the lodging tax funds, about $1.5 million that comes in, and then our department kind of oversees those funds. And there's a lot of, about half of that goes to Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism, and that's a primary sector for them. They focus on that. It's called Base Camp Bellingham. We fund Recreation Northwest, and we obviously are focused on our own recreational amenities and providing those as well. We could talk about whether or not we want to highlight those sectors in our plan, but we also, on Choose Whatcom, it is listed. We did select sectors, and it is one of those. I think it's one of 7 sectors that are highlighted.
Yeah, I think there's, and I want to be clear with this because I don't want it to sound like I'm asking to use any kind of greenways funds or other funds to be an economic driver specifically. However, if we have this really robust system of parks and trails, our community clearly values this tremendously, and there are areas that if we looked at it through an economic driving lens, say in the Birchwood Corridor, for instance, I mean an area that's quite depressed, is there a way to look through a recreation lens to see if there wouldn't be something that we could do improvements that could drive more business above that's recreation related and might be able to spur? And there might be other areas in the community as well. So just maybe thinking outside the box of how do we utilize one of our best assets to be an economic driver in areas that maybe aren't getting the traffic but might be really primed to have that type of traffic. So I would like to explore it further within the realm of what the committee wants to look at. And that was almost.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lillquist.
This is a really good discussion, and I think in part that's because these are kind of forward-looking kind of endeavors, which I think really gets the juice flowing for council members. We are always kind of looking forward and trying to build a better community. So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of interest in it. That's why I see a lot of interest in it. I appreciate the retail strategy. Tara, you and I have been doing a number of presentations by consultants or experts that have focused on the importance of that ground level retail for city center vitality and general economic development. But I think one of the things we concluded is not everyone who needed to be at those presentations was at those presentations, you know. So it'd be nice if we could spread the word a little more broadly. And a lot of it really has to do with kind of streetscapey issues that really are the city's responsibility, that occur within the right of way. We're not going to go in and do a business plan for a retailer, but there's things we can do at the streetscape level, I think, that are really important. Councilman Barker mentioned housing affordability. You know, it is a key piece. I think we all recognize that. The way I look at the numbers is our housing prices are not so out of line, so high compared to Western Washington, which is pretty expensive, but our income numbers are actually below where they would need to be. So I think one of the keys to the housing affordability issue here in Whatcom County is actually driving economic development so there are more high-paying, good-paying jobs for people at all levels of income. So I think that's one of the pieces. Economic development can actually help affect housing affordability if we're successful in it. And that brings back, I think I just want to jump a little bit on what Councilmember Murphy said on the fiber initiative. I think that there is a competition component there. Publicly owned open access networks do change the landscape in terms of competition and service delivery to businesses. So I think there could be a role to play there. Even if there's not an absolute gap in service, there may be sort of still a deficiency in how the broadband market works in our community. I don't know. It's something I've kind of been wondering about for a long time, as you know, and I don't have the answers yet. Thanks for letting me comment.
Committee members, any other comments? Councilmember Barker.
Thank you for your comments. I think that's where I'm coming up with my concern about the housing and the affordability. And one of our major projects is retail strategy. And I think that's really important for the downtown. But retail, we already know, isn't what's getting people, maybe the person who owns the place, but not typically is retail, to my understanding, bringing in jobs that are helping people afford a $350,000 home.
That's true, and that's why I probably didn't go into enough detail on it, but that's why I said it might seem odd that we're focused on retail, but it's really important because it relates to that strength, and we're talking about ground floor retail, but you know, restaurants and the appearance of it, and they should be selling a lot so that they can afford to pay their rent, etc. But it's what that positive environment is going to do for getting people to be serious about investing more money in our downtown, about wanting to keep those 80 people downtown Bellingham instead of moving to a different part of our city. And so there's a method to the madness. And so when you hear that, or when you're talking to people, make sure that you do relate it to wanting to improve the economic health of downtown, but really downtown also signals what Bellingham is about and how healthy Bellingham is as a place to do business. And so it will help us bring in those higher wage jobs as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm simply saying that we don't really have that middle housing that's going to support the types of jobs, the people that would be working at some of these jobs. So that's why I'd like to just have a parallel conversation, making sure that we're not putting cart in front of horse and horse in front of cart education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. And I do reiterate that comment is that downtown vibrancy and our retail health says a lot about who we are as a city. It keeps businesses here. It attracts new businesses. So this is something that is very important to us. And we are working in parallel trying to solve our housing issues. So I think these two things will complement each other very well. Thank you very much, Tara. Appreciate that. And into committee.
Thank you, Pinky.